Welcome back. An update now to a story we have been following closely for you. 2 people are dead after an apparent murder-suicide on the University of South Carolina campus. Officials say the shooting happened in the New School of Public Health Research building in a busy section of downtown Columbia. A campus-wide lockdown was put in place. That has since been lifted. Authorities said it was not an active shooter situation and was an isolated incident.
We overheard people saying like they thought the shots had been fired and stuff, but it was like I was in the building, I didn't hear shots, so it was just like it didn't feel like it really happened, you know? And like even now I don't really know what's going on. I just heard that shots have been fired.
The names of the shooter and victim have not been released. Classes went on as scheduled, except in the building where the shooting took place. An investigation is currently underway. Another investigation here, this one in New York. New York investigators looking into how a mother of 3 ended up on a railroad track ahead of an oncoming train. Officials from the National Transportation Safety Board say friends of 49-year-old Ellen Brody describe her as very safety conscious. Their investigation focusing now on what the Mercedes SUV was doing there. They are checking the vehicle to see if it had a data recorder.
That's a key part of the investigation. If we can't get it from recorded data, we certainly believe that there's eyewitness data. We already know of a gentleman who was parked behind her. So we're going to do everything we can to try and understand that key fact.
With 6 people killed and 15 injured, federal officials are calling this the worst rail crash in the line's 32-year history. The first 2 cars of the train were pierced by hundreds of feet of the electrified third rail. After slamming into the SUV, the train and vehicle erupted in flames, a scary scene as they skid together in a fireball about 1,000 feet down the line. Train service, we understand, has resumed, although delays are expected as trains are slowing down for the crash site. And months after the Sony Pictures cyber hack, the company's co-chair announces she is stepping down. Amy Pascal says she will move into a new role within the company starting in May. The 56-year-old came under a lot of scrutiny when leaked emails detailed an exchange with a producer that mocked President Obama's film preferences. In her new role, Pascal has a 4-year agreement with Sony and will retain distribution rights to the films she finances. Linda So has more tonight on her decision.
Amy Pascal, one of the most powerful women executives in Hollywood, is stepping down as co-chairman of Sony Pictures. The move comes after hackers leaked a chain of embarrassing emails between Pascal and other Hollywood figures. Those emails were made public by hackers angry about the interview.
You want us to assassinate the leader of North Korea?
A movie mocking North Korea's dictator. In one of the emails, Pascal made racially insensitive remarks about President Obama's taste in films. She later apologized. The company says Pascal will step down from her post in May to launch her own production venture at the studio. Her replacement has not been named.
President Obama's long-awaited national security report is set to be released tomorrow, and National Security Advisor Susan Rice is set to do the honors. The report is on defense strategies abroad. It comes in the wake of the brutal execution of a Jordanian pilot by ISIS militants. One America's White House correspondent Patrick Hushin has our report tonight.
It was the rise of the Islamic State last summer that sent the National Security Council scrambling and in turn delaying this report. Of course, it's not uncommon for any president to miss the deadline on this annual doctrine, but this administration has been putting this off for more than a year now. Despite ongoing conflicts abroad, Press Secretary Josh Earnest says he does not anticipate any details regarding the authorization of U.S. military force. So it will be interesting to see if anxious lawmakers looking to see more American leadership abroad will be satisfied come Friday with this administration's report. GOP lawmakers are looking for some sense of urgency and have been for some time now. Currently, there is some humanitarian support heading in the way of Ukraine, but what will this report tell us, if anything, about the president's intentions regarding weapons to Kiev?
We want a diplomatic resolution, but we cannot close our eyes to tanks that are crossing the border from Russia and coming in to Ukraine.
And there is a sense that the United Arab Emirates may be pulling away from their involvement in coalition airstrikes. The administration says that the U.S. no doubt handles the lion's share within the coalition, but nonetheless, they still feel that it's as strong as ever following this latest violence by ISIL militants. Now, this latest execution raises the question of ground troops within the coalition and the potential for a strategy to search for and rescue any future downed pilots within enemy lines. At the White House, Patrick Hushin, One American News.
All right, and House Speaker John Boehner expressing his gratitude today that the Pope will be addressing a joint session of Congress. Listen.
On September 24th, His Holiness Pope Francis will visit us here at the United States Capitol. That day, His Holiness will be the first Pope in our history to address a joint session of Congress. We're humbled that the Holy Father has accepted our invitation and certainly look forward to receiving his message on behalf of the American people.
The Pope is expected to make his first papal visit to the United States this fall. Outside of traveling to D.C. to address Congress, he will also be making stops in both New York and Philadelphia. And on to this, Russia warning the U.S. against sending weapons to Ukraine, saying doing that could escalate the situation from here. Russian officials say it would cause colossal damage to U.S. ties with Russia. The news coming as Secretary of State John Kerry called for a ceasefire to the conflict in eastern Ukraine.
Second, remove foreign troops and heavy equipment from Ukraine, which leads you to the third step: respect the international border.
Kerry made the comments after meeting with Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko. He then headed to Munich for the start of a two-day international security conference with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The West, we know, has accused Moscow of fueling the insurgency in eastern Ukraine, a claim Russia denies.
No God condones terror.
President Obama there with strong words for those who use religion as an excuse for carrying out violence. Speaking at the National Prayer Breakfast, the president singled out the Islamic State terror group in Iraq and Syria, calling it a death cult.
No grievance justifies the taking of innocent lives or the oppression of those who are weaker or fewer in number. And so as people of faith, we are summoned to push back against those who try to distort our religion, any religion, for their own nihilistic ends.
Among those attending the event was the Dalai Lama, the spiritual leader of Tibetan Buddhism. His presence in Washington drew criticism from Beijing. Beijing sees him as an anti-Chinese separatist. And Islamic terrorists in Syria and Iraq are coming under heavy fire from intense coalition airstrikes. 3 targets were hit in Syria, while another 9 were destroyed in Iraq using U.S. bombers, fighters, and drones. These attacks happened overnight, with all aircraft returning safely to base. The renewed strikes come after Jordan vowed revenge for the slaying of its captured pilot at the hands of ISIS, as we have been following closely. Jordanian fighter jets carried out several airstrikes on Thursday, with officials promising this was just the beginning of more to come. The strikes targeted ISIS training centers as well as weapon depots. And the White House is declining to criticize 2 executions carried out by Jordan. This a related story. The executions came in response to the recent ISIS video showing the Jordanian pilot being burned alive. Press Secretary Josh Earnest said the 2 inmates were convicted of very serious terrorism-related crimes.
These were individuals who were sentenced to death and were serving time on death row, and then we did see reports that their executions were carried out overnight. For questions about the circumstances of their confinement or the decision to move forward on the execution, I'd refer you to Jordanian authorities, who can provide a great deal more insight into the Jordanian justice system than I can.
Jordan hanged the 2 prisoners, including a failed female suicide bomber, on Wednesday, and the country is vowing relentless war against ISIS in retaliation for the pilot's death. And a lot of talk about this. NBC News anchor Brian Williams publicly apologizing for lying when he said his helicopter was hit by a grenade during the Iraq War. The top on-air personality's credibility was called into question by the public and other media outlets. In an interview, Williams said that his helicopter was hit when it was actually the one in front of him. He later recanted, saying his memory was foggy. We played the wrong soundbite for you earlier. Here's the correct one.
Soldiers are very sensitive to what they perceive as people either misrepresenting their roles in life-threatening situations or what they consider attempts to get reflected glory.
To find out that it's a complete fabrication is a little disheartening.
And NBC did not say whether or not they would discipline Williams. We know many are calling for him to be fired. All right, stay here straight ahead on One America News. A new robot in Japan is changing the way officials study the damage caused by nuclear reactor leaks. What the government hopes the robot will help them achieve when we come back. Welcome back. Social media made a few friends on Wall Street as Twitter and LinkedIn report strong earnings during the last quarter. Bobby Rebell gets us linked in to what's going on in tonight's stock market update.
After hours earnings led by Twitter, revenues beating forecasts in the fourth quarter, but the pace of user growth was the slowest in several quarters. LinkedIn results beating forecasts, quarterly revenue jumping 44%. GoPro going strong. The action camera company's results were better than forecasts. Revenue surged 75% thanks to strong sales of those popular wearable cameras, which were up 35% in 2014. Rupert Murdoch's News Corp's second quarter earnings were in line with forecasts, revenues up about 2%, helped by the company's book publishing and real estate businesses. But a miss for Pandora, sending its stock plummeting in after-hours trading. Activision Blizzard also out with a losing report, lowering its outlook. Stocks are back in positive territory for the year, thanks to gains on Thursday, energy shares lifting the major indexes. Also a big lift, Pfizer's $15 billion deal to buy Hospira, the 39% premium, sending shares of both stocks higher. Michael Kors posting disappointing third quarter results and warning of lower than expected profits in the current quarter, putting its stock out of fashion with investors. Slashing prices worked for Sprint. It added more wireless subscribers, and its quarterly revenue fell less than expected.
And GoPro users are used to going rogue, but now GoPro is going Roku. GoPro announcing it will now have its own Roku channel. The channel is set to debut this spring. It will offer viewers a combination of content produced by GoPro itself and GoPro users. By the way, that right there is my favorite shot of the day. GoPro has gained a lot of attention for the footage users have shot and submitted online. The company even has a partnership with the National Hockey League and the X Games. Primarily geared toward a younger audience, Roku introduced content in 2013 on Microsoft's Xbox console and on Virgin America flights. And a new robot could help Japanese officials understand the level of damage caused to 3 melted nuclear reactors in Fukushima. The nuclear reactor core suffered a meltdown in 2011 caused by an earthquake and tsunami. A team of scientists in Japan believe the robot could also assist in decommissioning the reactors.
This is the first robot that will go inside the nuclear reactor's containment vessel. The major point of it is that it can withstand high radiation while entering into a limited space and move safely.
Up to now, we didn't know anything about what is inside the primary containment vessel. Being able to gather information of the fuel melted in the bottom of the containment vessel will help in the future process of removing the fuel debris.
Japanese government officials hope the robot will help speed up the return of residents to the region, which was heavily impacted by the nuclear crisis. Well, Campus Party, the world's largest technology fair, begins this week in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The 6-day, 24-hour-a-day festival has people sleeping in tents just to get their hands on this latest technology. The fair attracts around 8,000 entrepreneurs, students, and developers, most of them young people from all over Brazil. It features dueling robots, flying drones, and thousands of people playing games and looking for opportunities to present their own business.
Depending on the idea you have, you can present it here so other people can get to know your business. You can even expand, or you may find partners for your business. It's a way of not being restricted to your region. Like us, for example, we came from the state of Bahia, and we can expand our business to all over Brazil, to all over the world through Campus Party.
Campus Party began in Sao Paulo in 2008 with 3,300 visitors and now attracts visitors from all around the world. Organizers say the event is constantly growing and is now the world's largest Campus Party fair. We have more for you. Stay here on One America News. Up next, as one ice sculptor learns what goes up must come down in physics and in life. Deep thoughts tonight. Stick around to see how the collapse of this project in Wisconsin will impact the Winter Festival. That's next. There are gorgeous ice sculptures, and there are ice sculptures that don't fare quite so well. This is a story of an ice sculpture designed to be the centerpiece of an upcoming winter festival in Wisconsin. As you just saw, it collapses as it was approaching a height of 65 feet. A statement from the city says warm weather in December and January may have weakened the structure's core, but at least ice sculptures can appreciate the cold weather right now. Trying to stay positive here. And finally, the owner of a barbershop in Georgia wanted to motivate his son to do better in school, so he did what he does best. He cut his son's hair, but he cut it into the less desirable haircut of a famous TV character. Matt Friedman has more on the haircut that has now gone viral.
Customers at Snellville, Georgia's A1 Cuts are patiently getting the latest hairstyles, but one look has some younger customers moving on up. That's owner Russell Frederick's 12-year-old son sporting the Benjamin Button Special. Rashawn's grades were poor, so Frederick thought cutting his hair might just give him some motivation to study harder.
Shaved his head bald, and as a form of punishment with him, and then threatened him with the same haircut after I was done with that if his behavior continued.
The result? Rashawn looked a lot like George Jefferson, a fictional sitcom character of the 70s and 80s played by actor Sherman Helmsley. But Frederick got the desired result.
He straightened up, didn't have any more problems out of him, so I never had to do it on him.
But this week, the George Jefferson haircut went viral, and the calls keep on coming.
And just like that, an uncool haircut became cool again. Remains to be seen. I'm CASSIE LEUFFEN. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Thank you for staying informed. We hope to see you back here on Friday. Good night.